2024 is off to a rough start for the two Koreas following provocations by the North near the maritime border. On top of that, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has called the South the regime's main enemy for the very first time. Joining me is our defense correspondent, Choi Min-jung. Welcome back, Min-jung.
Thank you for having me.
Min-jung, so North Korean leader Kim Jong-un wrapped up 2023 by calling the two Koreas, quote, hostile nations at war. And as we begin the new year, he's now calling the South the North's principal enemy.
That's right, Dami. North Korea has called the South its main enemy a couple of times in the past when the two sides were going through a rough patch. But this is the first time that leader Kim Jong-un directly declared South Korea as its main enemy. This was said during a visit to munitions factories earlier this week, where he inspected what appeared to be missile vehicles for short-range ballistic missiles.
Declaring that the Republic of Korea is our main enemy, he said what we should focus on when it comes to the relations with a hostile state is to strengthen self-defense capabilities and nuclear war deterrence.
Kim also stressed he had no intention of avoiding war and threatened to, quote, completely destroy South Korea if it attempted to harm the regime. Seoul's unification ministry downplayed Kim's remarks as nothing more than an outdated tactic. But despite that, concerns are growing as North Korea is expected to be preparing more powerful provocations this year.
Looking at Kim's remarks, military tensions on the Korean Peninsula are expected to increase significantly in 2024. We should expect a show of force when South Korea and the US conduct joint military exercises in March and August. We should also expect to see North Korea pressure the US at the highest level possible ahead of the US presidential election in November, causing tensions on the peninsula to escalate.
Well, we have already witnessed North Korea ramping up its hostility toward the South near the artillery firings near the maritime border, right?
Right. North Korea fired artillery shells into waters off its western coast last Sunday for the third consecutive day. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff detected around 90 artillery shots that day, following the firing of 200 shells on Friday and 60 on Saturday. The North Korean leader's sister, Kim Jong-un, however, attempted to shame the South Korean military's detection capabilities by claiming that the North had not actually fired 60 artillery shells on Saturday, but instead detonated explosives simulating the sound of artillery fire. But Seoul's JCS immediately dismissed the statement, calling it, quote, comedy-like propaganda that is once again attempting to damage trust in the military and cause conflict within the South.
And following the North's artillery firings near the maritime border, the South Korean military declared that the buffer zones that are outlined in the Inter-Korean military agreement are no longer effective. Min-jung, what does that mean?
So as you said, there are buffer zones along the Inter-Korean border, which were set up in 2018 when the two Koreas signed an Inter-Korean military agreement to halt hostilities near the border. But following continued artillery fire by North Korea off its western coast, the military on Monday declared that these zones were no longer effective. To give a little explanation on the locations of the buffer zones under the pact, first on the ground, a 5-kilometer buffer zone was established in the north and south from the military demarcation line, and here artillery fire and regimental or higher level field maneuvers were suspended. And in the maritime buffer zone at sea, all coastal and naval artillery as well as maritime exercises were banned. And in the air, a no-fly zone banned aircraft from flying within 20 kilometers of the MDL in the western section of the demilitarized zone and within 40 kilometers of the zone in the east. Now, tensions along the border have also been escalating as Pyongyang has been restoring some of the guard posts it had previously destroyed inside the DMZ in recent months. The regime has also allegedly left underground facilities intact as well. Now, this is another violation of the Inter-Korean military pact, as the two Koreas had agreed to destroy 10 guard posts each inside the DMZ back in 2018.
Then what's South Korean military stance on this? I mean, are we taking any measures against the North, given that those buffer zones are no longer being recognized?
Well, last week, South Korea conducted artillery drills within the maritime buffer zone for the first time in 6 years in response to the North's firing of artillery. And the Defense Ministry on Tuesday also revealed plans to resume artillery exercises in the buffer zone on land as well.
As you know, due to the September 19th military agreement, there were restrictions on large-scale regiment-level maneuver training and artillery fire training within 5 kilometers from the MDL. So there were some limitations in establishing a readiness posture in border areas with frontline units. I believe that such issues will be resolved and each unit will be able to train in better conditions.
And our military is reportedly working on restoring guard posts in the DMZ as well, beginning with rebuilding temporary guard posts made of sandbags.
So we are witnessing military activities that were once banned on both sides of the DMZ. Min-jung, can we see this as an official, possibly a termination of the inter-Korean military agreement?
Well, it's hard to say given that a complete termination of the pact would involve consultations between relevant ministries. But we could say that we are heading towards it, as the defense minister said in an interview with Yonhap News Agency that a complete abolition of the pact would be necessary to allow the military to ramp up self-defense capabilities amid growing threats from North Korea.
All right, seems like the South Korean military remains on high alert to really counter those bigger threats coming from the north. Thank you for the coverage, Min-jung, today.
My pleasure.